Hello. The decline of music hall is a fascinating aspect of the story of popular culture in Britain in the early to mid 20th century. I'm Chris Tracy, Archive Specialist at Norfolk Heritage Centre, located on the second floor of the Norfolk and Norwich Millennium Library. And in this edition of Heritage Highlights, I'll be tracing the arc of that narrative in microcosm by showcasing items from our collections that shine a light on the fortunes of the Norwich Hippodrome Theatre. Conceived as an upmarket opera house and theatrical venue by a syndicate of businessmen headed by former Theatre Royal manager Fred Morgan, Norwich Hippodrome, initially named the Grand Opera House, was built in 1902-3 on land which, up until its demolition a few years previously, had been occupied by the Norfolk Hotel on St Giles Street. Opening on 3rd of August 1903 with a production of The Country Girl, the new venue had the capacity to seat 1,836 theatre-goers and incorporated a bar and restaurant. As this photograph illustrates, it was an impressive building, set back about 40 feet from the road and built to an imposing neoclassical design by theatre architect W.G.R. Sprague. The venue's renaming, after only a year, from the Grand Opera House to the Hippodrome Theatre, reflected the fact that, despite Fred Morgan's intentions, the theatre quickly found itself offering up a tried and tested selection of revues, music hall and variety acts, interspersed with film screenings. However, as we can see, the grandeur of its exterior was matched within by an opulence which testified to Morgan's first ambitions to cater for a decidedly upmarket clientele. Here we see a unique item from our ephemera collections, a Hippodrome programme from 1922, which features a young Gracie Fields and her future husband Archie Pitt in the cast for the musical comedy Mr. Tower of London. It is the only known copy of the programme for the show from anywhere during its 6-year run. Despite periods in the 1930s and 40s when it converted to being a full-time cinema, and closure following severe bomb damage sustained in the Norwich Blitz of April 1942, by 1948 the Hippodrome was again operating as a theatrical venue under the auspices of the Butterworth Theatres chain. Here we see Harry Lester and the Hayseeds performing their popular Wild West revue. However, despite the appearance of big names, including, famously, Laurel and Hardy, the 1950s saw the Hippodrome struggle to keep up with changing tastes and habits. Competing with a number of cinemas in the city, along with increasing television ownership and the precursors of rock and roll, its decline is suggested by the faint air of desperation manifested in publicity posters of the time. Having once again, in 1957, returned to operating as a full-time cinema, the venue finally closed for good in April 1960, eventually being demolished to make way in 1966 for the St Giles car park, which still stands on the site. I am indebted for this edition of Heritage Highlights to the research of my much-missed friend and colleague Trevor Markworth, whose talk on the history of the Hippodrome, for your entertainment, can be accessed, along with many others, via the Norfolk Heritage Centre podcast. Thank you for watching.